Welcome back to part two of our 2026 planning blueprint. Now, if you missed part one, I would highly recommend you to go back to that first because I talk about what 2025 was all about. Because I truly believe once you understand the patterns and the trends and also the changes that are happening, it's a lot easier to plan for what's next. And by understanding where those shifts are coming from, you certainly can take that into consideration to develop a strategy that is actually based on real time insights, but also make your planning a lot more realistic and also more tangible. In a nutshell, the three big trends and changes and shifts that I talked about was firstly the rise of the portfolio career, not necessarily as a nice to have, but as the answer to a more insecure and unstable economy. There's a lot more layoffs going on. There are a lot more redundancies. AI obviously adds a lot more stress to that, because we do see a lot of jobs and tasks are getting replaced, and it forces less enables us to up level. However, those who don't want to up level, they will be left behind. And the numbers also back it up. Portfolio careers are not necessarily a nice to have. When I talked about exactly the same topic 2 years ago, only about 20-25% of Americans had a at least second income. Now it's 47, and Australia is certainly not too far behind, even though it always takes a little longer until trends are coming here. But being smarter about how you can leverage your skills in different ways and different engagements is certainly something that you want to consider. When you run your own business, you want to think, how can I add another income stream based on my IP, based on the assets that I create? Maybe through an recurring workshop that you are running. So it's always the same blueprint, but you are inviting people in and charge for that. And this could be an additional income stream that you have 4 times a year if you do a quarterly planning session. Maybe it is for you to join a board, an advisory board or a governance board. You want to put yourself out there and take actions according to that. So this is trend number one. Trend number two was about having to do more to get to the same results, because we were all running, we were all showing up, we were all doing what's required. However, it literally felt like we have to invest double the amount of energy and time and resources to get to the same or similar result. The answer to that is that we cannot rely on doing the same thing and expect the same results, because the world is moving and shifting. And my response to that is to do more experiments. Detach and divorce yourself from the outcome, but commit to the process and the learning, and also share what you are up to, what worked, what didn't work, and build trust and credibility this way. And last but not least, we were talking about the shift of content. Yes, people are fatigued of content, however, only of content that sounds and looks like the same, polished and perfect, and that everyone's got it together. And the opportunity here is for you to take people on the journey, to share something that you are up to and nobody else can copy, what you have experienced, and nobody else could talk about that, because that builds a lot more interest and also personality. So for example, I did or still do the 10 pull-ups challenge, and people can join me on this journey. It's very unique content. People were literally saying it is such a different type of content when you see on a professional platform like LinkedIn somebody who you know professionally doing pull-ups in their activewear. It's such a pattern interruption, but I truly believe this is what's required to get people's attention in 2026 and beyond. It's enough of theory, trends, and patterns. We want to get our hands dirty, meaning we want to get our hands on the worksheet. If you have not downloaded it yet, I would highly recommend you to do so. Or if you prefer to work through the questions and the exercises on a notebook, that's fine too. But we want to start with the year in review grid. And there are 4 questions for you to ask yourselves. Firstly, what worked? Where did things flow? What did people say yes to very easily? Where did results come faster than effort? The next step, and I don't want to necessarily say what didn't go right or what failed, because it may not be that dramatic, but it could have been better. Let's put it that way, which is why I called it what fell flat. For me, for example, I launched an online course at the beginning of the year. However, I actually did not promote it at all. And clearly that fell flat, because I wanted to shift at least 30% of my one-on-one coaching into online courses, and obviously didn't get there because I didn't put any effort or any focus into promoting the online course. So obviously that's on me, but that's certainly what fell flat. Again, no shame. It's only data that we want to then use for our next step. And then the last two questions is first quadrant is what was energizing in general? Because again, our job is to spot patterns and understand what is energizing for us. What do we enjoy doing? Who do we love to hang out with? And then how can we take those insights into what we are planning and developing and designing next? And then last but not least, we also want to understand what was draining. What kind of people were just sucking the light out of us? What kind of tasks were so tedious that we didn't do anything else today because we were just so tired from doing this one task? We want to eliminate that as good as we can and also think about how can we use AI for that? How can we tap into getting a virtual assistant to execute on this task? Who else could actually work on that particular activity if it's draining the heck out of us? It doesn't actually get us to where we need to be. And it's something that somebody else can do very, very easily. So this is step and exercise number 1. We want to put that to the side for now because we are coming back to that. But now we want to switch focus and look ahead. We want to ask 3 big questions. Firstly, what does success look like for me in 2026? Revenue, opportunities, lifestyle, scope, reputation, you name it. The second question is a little bit trickier. It's about what does success feel like? And this is where you can put the emotional side of your success. It may be you want to feel calm, in control, stretched, respected, mentally stimulated. This is something that I, for example, put in there, that I am mentally exhausted after a day because I actually had to stretch myself. At the same time, I want to feel in control. I don't want to be reactive and bending over for others. I want to be very much in control and calm of what I offer, what I don't offer, and also how I go about that. And the last question here is, what are the 3 numbers that matter most next year? It may be revenue, it may be the number of key clients, it may be the number of speaking days, the days off, the trips that you want to do, or something else. What are the 3 numbers that matter most for you next year? And I would highly recommend you to pick a professional and a personal goal. And then the third one is whatever you like. For me, I definitely want to increase the number of speaking days / engagements / industries a lot more. So this is one of the numbers that I've got in there. I also have a revenue number in there, but focus on the 3 numbers. If you can't choose 3, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 4, but you get the gist. You want to quantify what success looks like. Otherwise, we're just running towards something that could be success, or it could be not where we want to be. However, if we don't set a goal, we're obviously not gonna get there, and or every road is going to get there. And that leads us into the next exercise, because it's again zooming out. In order for me to achieve what success looks and feels like to me and achieve the numbers, what is it that I want to do more of to get there? But also, what do I not want at all, or not as much of anymore? And understand that we can't get rid of everything and everyone who is slightly draining or who is a bit exhausting and so forth. However, what do we not want? How can we reduce that or completely eliminate that? Because that obviously ties in with our buckets of how drained / how energized are we after being with this person, doing this task, completing this kind of activity. And for me, for example, again, what success looks like is that I'm mentally challenged and stretched. What I want more of is I want to be intellectually stimulated a lot more, which means that creating more content, thinking about what is next, being a lot more original with my own research and so forth. This is part of what I want. What I don't want is that I'm just stagnant, that I'm at the same spot next year to where I am right now. This is for me probably the worst criteria ever, being exactly where I am a year from now, even though I'm in a really good spot. But for me, stretching and growing is certainly one of the core values. And this ties in nicely with our next exercise, which is where we want to review our brand identity. Here is where it becomes practical. And often when people think or hear the word brand, they immediately think of the colors and the fonts and how beautiful the Instagram feed looks like. And yes, visuals matter. I actually updated both of my companies' branding this year for exactly that reason, because I have outgrown my previous colors and the positioning and the offers. But it wasn't that I just switched out a couple of colors and then called it a day. There was a lot more work involved in that. And this is what I always say, it's the unsexy work. It's about asking those hard questions. Who do I want to work with? How do we want to be perceived? What do we need to do in order to get there? And this is also what I want you to complete. You want to start with what you are known for right now. This is where you start with the truth, not with aspiration. What do people hire you for right now? When I would ask your colleagues what they say about you, what would they say? What do your colleagues ask you about? What do clients associate you with? What's your current market perception? Because that's the baseline we are working from. Now, the next step is what you want to be known for, meaning this is your next category move. What is the problem that you want to own and be known for being able to solve? What's the outcome? What lane do you want to take? What is the commercial direction for your next level? How do you want to make money? Maybe you want to move from being an operational executive to more a strategic advisor. What is the shift that you want to be known for next? And once you know that, this is where it becomes really practical, because we want to ask ourselves, what do I need to do in order to get known for that? This is all part of behavior, not affirmations, not journaling, actual operational shifts. You might need different conversations or different clients or different rooms, a signature framework, better outputs, not more outputs necessarily, higher standards for what you say yes to. And this is the execution plan that signals your shift to the market. And last but not least, in order for us to grow, there are certain skills that we don't know yet or that we haven't mastered as much as we should. And this is where your skills audit comes in. This is where we see your capability gaps that would make your next level inevitable. And examples would be, you may want to improve your communication skills, because strategic communication is honestly one of the most important skills in 2026 and beyond. It may be facilitation. It may be including storytelling in your keynotes and in your presentations. It may be leadership, because we've got now 6 generations in the workforce. It may be sales, because if we are not able to sell, whether it's a product, a service, and or ourselves for our next role, we're not going very far. We can be the smartest, but if people don't know about us and or don't want to say yes to us because we're not able to articulate what value we bring, everything else does not matter. Maybe it's system thinking. Maybe it's choosing more of a technical or domain skill that you want to hone in on. This becomes your 2026 development roadmap, the skills that support your positioning, your performance, and also your commercial potential. And this is where the 4P stack comes in, because it shows us the structural gaps that we need to upgrade in order for us to achieve our next level. This is our 4-part audit, and this is also where most people get their breakthroughs from, because it shows you exactly where the gaps are. Think of it as your personal operating system audit. Firstly, we look into performance, and I called it performance because it can be your professional, but also your personal aspirations and your targets. What do I actually want to achieve later? List your 2026 performance goals across both professional and personal domains, from revenue to opportunities to speaking to leadership impact to lifestyle metrics to reputation goals to strategic moves you want to make. It's not about hype, it's about creating a scoreboard that you are aiming. The next layer is people, because in the end, we live in a network economy, meaning the more people we know, the more people know of us, the easier it is for us to get to those opportunities. So we assess your network, your access to the network that is relevant to open doors or to make decisions, and also the leverage. So think about, who do you need around you in order for you to reach the next level, and break it down into 4 categories, from mentors to collaborators to connectors to strategic relationships. But also think of, who do I need less of, because they are just holding me back, or they're just sucking the light out of you. Who drains you? Who keeps you tied to a previous version of yourself because they don't want to grow? Now, this layer determines your access, your opportunities, and also your speed. Moving on to our 3rd P, and this is positioning. It is how the market perceives you next year. This is the bridge between the identity and the commercial reality. You want to define, which category do you want to sit in? Which problem do you want to be associated with being able to solve? The value you want to be known for that you can make, the reputation shift you want to make, and also the narrative you want people to repeat when you are not in the room. Because this clarifies exactly how you need to show up. And this leads me into our last P, and this is platforms. Where do you need to build presence, authority, and trust? Where do you actually need to be seen? So is your 2026 rooms, I can't think of a better word, across online and offline contexts, from LinkedIn to YouTube to Substack to podcasts to keynotes to panels to roundtables to masterclasses, industry events, community spaces, you name it. These are the stages that reinforce your positioning, because again, if you can't be seen, you can't be considered. And we want to think of where do people who I need to have around me, which we have identified in step 2, hang out already, so I can plug myself in. I can get in front of them. Maybe it is to be on at least 4 podcasts a month, so 1 podcast a week on average across the 12 months. Maybe sometimes it's 10, other months is only 2. But this is something you can work towards if this is something that you want to work. So we want to end with something simple, not necessarily easy, because it requires you to really hone in on the one big move that will make this a massive change and shift towards you achieving your goals that we set earlier. This is the question: what is the one big move that I can take today that future me will thank you for not overthinking? We don't want to think about what am I doing next month or tomorrow or when the calendar calms down. No. What can you do today? What can you do in terms of people that you can start taking an action towards today? Can you reach out to 5 people today? Can you send them a quick note with a new research? Can you send them a thank you note? What can you do in terms of skills? What can you do right now? Can you do a LinkedIn course? Can you listen to a podcast? Can you set up a project where you can actually get hands-on skills? And last but not least, what kind of systems can you set up in order for you to achieve that? It may be it's time for a bit of a spring clean on your Google Drive, and you want to align your desktop version with your Google version. This is certainly something that I need to do urgently, and I've been doing that for literally the last 5 years, every single time at the end of the year, to get rid of all the old folders and the old files that I don't need anymore, and set up a very cohesive, lean and mean workspace that does not have any clutter and unnecessary files in there. It could be that you want to finally systemize and package your IP so you can develop a signature framework that you can then monetize in 2026. What are these 1 to 3 steps that you can take right away across the 3 different categories: people, skills, and systems? And then, of course, it comes down to actually you doing the doing. I would also highly recommend you to have this worksheet right in front of you, maybe a small version. Maybe you want to turn the insights that you've gathered into a vision board that you use as screensaver, which I certainly have done. So this is my 2025 vision board. I also have it on my desktop, and I constantly see it. Some of the elements will stay for 2026, but others, because I've achieved them and they no longer fit now, I've outgrown them, they will go. Again, you want to get practically, you actually want to take some steps towards achieving your goals, because planning is great, but it only is great when you take what you have gathered from those insights and turn them into a practical step that actually gets you closer to your goal. All right, let's land this plane. If 2025 felt like one long game of keeping up, you're not imagining it. It was certainly a very tough and challenging year. AI didn't just give us faster tools, it also changed how people judge expertise and also how they perceive value. Information is now considered as cheap. Outputs can be automated. Prompts, everyone's got them. In 2026, people are not paying for information anymore. People are paying for acceleration and implementation. Your value isn't what you know, it's how fast you can help somebody achieve their goal. I've been saying for a long time that speed can and should be your competitive advantage if nothing else is, because the quicker people can get to the desired result, the more valuable and premium they actually perceive whatever it is that gets them there. So for example, I condensed my brand and business advisory from 6 months into a full day, strategy day, to then develop the strategy around those insights. So instead of waiting and dragging out the process for 3 to 6 months for no reason other than people thought it's more valuable, and it isn't, because you lose momentum and so forth, what can you do to get to results quicker? Because this is what people invest in right now: speed, clarity, a distinct point of view, not just a copy and paste answer from somebody else's feed, curated shortcuts based on your expertise and experience, real world experience, of course, that doesn't go away, and also a systemized, transparent framework that creates predictable outcomes. That is the new value equation. And here's the bit that most people miss. You cannot afford to do this kind of reflection once a year. The market doesn't move annually, it moves quarterly, if not monthly or weekly. Expect every 6 to 12 weeks, expectations shift, platforms shift. AI raises the bar again. Buyer behavior is changing. If you have been buried into doing the doing and you don't zoom out at least once a quarter, you wake up and realize you are operating on an outdated equation. And this is why I really want to emphasize that this shouldn't be a new year ritual. It should be a quarterly reset, because the people who win in 2026 won't be the ones shouting the loudest. They will be the ones who refine faster, who adapt faster, who package value faster, and also who respond to change faster. Now, if this video was helpful and you got value out of it, I would love for you to subscribe, maybe even like and share the episode, because it will show me that you are interested in this kind of topic and this kind of style, and I will certainly do a lot more of that in 2026. Now, with that, have a fantastic break. Enjoy the Christmas activities and the hopefully slower days throughout the festive season. And I cannot wait to see what 2026 has in store for you.